now that Pep's won the Champions League, obviously, which has seemed like, the holy grail, that, the last missing piece in Pep's time at City, I think he's got this season and then the season after that, and that's when his contract ends. So there's a pretty high likelihood he's not going to sign.
He said he's going to go, isn't he? I think he's apparently said it. Hasn't he?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think what he said was, "I'm going to see out the rest of my contract," and I don't think he's absolutely said, "I'm not going to sign an extension," but the inference was that he's going to see out his contract and then he's not committed to an extension. So yeah, we can assume that in 2 years' time he will not be City manager, which is a pretty huge situation. Yeah. And that's why lots of people have been talking about it. So, and we saw Wenger. I know that Arsenal sort of deteriorated towards the end, but even when Wenger left, they were in the doldrums for a couple of years, not in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think the Arsenal situation was Wenger should have gone sooner.
Yeah, but even when Wenger left, they still struggled.
Because it showed that, and I think that there was also, there was a lot of backlash from building a new stadium as well, which obviously puts you in a lot of debt.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest example is when Fergie left United. There were lots of other reasons, but again, still a massive drop-off. And I expect it'll probably be a similar thing at Liverpool. I'd expect there to be a pretty big drop when Klopp leaves. What do you think, Gasky? Because I do think that, when Pep eventually leaves, I think there will be a drop-off because Pep is...
Yeah, there's always a drop-off.
Yeah. Because Pep is, for me, the greatest coach ever, up there with being the best manager ever in Premier League history or whatever. So obviously there's going to be some sort of drop-off. But I don't know if I subscribe to the idea that it's going to be like a United-style drop-off where, you go from champions to, seventh, and then, you're in the wilderness for however long. I think it will be a drop-off, but I don't think it's going to be like, right, now City are rubbish sort of thing.
I think it'll be it obviously depends on who they get in and how they want to go about it. Will they get a manager in who's very similar? Will they get someone in who's maybe a little bit different? A young manager maybe? But I think the worst they'll get is a top 4 fight for 1 year. I think that's the worst it'll go.
Yeah.
But you might not even get that bad. I think it might be like a third place.
Yeah.
Potentially. But no, I don't think it'll be a bad drop-off.
Yeah, because the reason why I think that is because the club is very well run, obviously. Yeah. Along with Brighton, Brentford, it's one of the best run clubs in the country. I think that's fair to say.
Definitely.
And a lot of that comes from the background staff, the CEO, sporting directors, etc. So there's a philosophy at City, which was all geared towards Pep coming in as manager. That was sort of like the final piece. But I think that as long as City get in a manager with a similar philosophy and a similar play style and a similar way of coaching and going about business to Pep, Pep's unique, but especially in the modern era, lots of managers subscribe to his way of thinking. Like you think of
they mold to his way.
Yeah. They think of Arteta, De Zerbi, all Ten Hag, all of these managers who have been inspired by Pep and now want to play his style of football. So I personally think that it's going to City will try as much as they can to just basically be the same. The background staff won't change that much if and when Pep leaves. Like they were here before Pep joined. I think they'll be here after. So it's all about just getting a manager with a similar philosophy. And that's why, really, this is why it confuses me with Chelsea, for example, and to a lesser extent United, because surely it makes more sense to build a team for a club and how a club wants to play football. So, for example, when Klopp leaves Liverpool, bring in another manager who wants to play gegenpressing football because he's got the players there who can do it. Yeah. When Pep leaves, bring in a player who wants to play his exact style of football. So someone like De Zerbi, for example, rather than just build a squad for the manager at the time, the flavour of the month, because in a year he might go.
No, exactly. Like with United after Fergie, it was Fergie's recommendation in Moyes, which is fine. Okay, you go with that's who I think should take over. It didn't work out. But then you go and get Van Gaal, who's completely different style, and he has to go and buy players that are his style. And then Mourinho, completely different style, and he's signing players to his style. You buy into the manager, you need to buy into the team. But that's what I see with Ten Hag signings at the moment is he's signing young players. He's signing 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds who can play how he wants to play football. Do you know, like rather playing Shaw at centre back than Maguire when there's injuries because it's a left-footed centre back he wants. Not, oh, he's a centre back and he's big, put him there. You know, and that's how I think you need to have it. So then if, you know, Ten Hag was to leave, you get a manager who can do the same thing with the same set of players.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what City need to do once Pep goes.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, there was one moment, I can't remember exactly, I think it may have been under Solskjaer, he was dealing with players from like 4 or 5 past managers or something like that.
Exactly. I think like Mata only just left last year, I think it was, and he was the one good thing from Moyes. And yeah, and he was like, and he's Mata's a very exquisite type of, you know, very unique player. He doesn't work for every manager. You know, like Mourinho came in, he sits on the bench because he won't fit in his style. And then Solskjaer comes in when he's got like a basketball team because they're so big from Mourinho's time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Definitely. And that's why I think that in sum, I think City will be fine. Life after Pep. It will be very sad. I don't think the football will look as good. I don't think that we'll ever be as good because Pep is the greatest coach ever. But it's not the end of the world, and it's more. I actually think it's probably more about the background staff, as I say, and the board. Making sure they keep the club's identity rather than let's go, I don't know, let's bring in Klopp and just play a totally different style of football, and that's now our identity. It's like, no, stick with your identity. No. And it doesn't matter if you chop and change managers, really, because they'll all play the same way.
It's not about going looking for the next best manager if he doesn't play the same way. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But Pep, I know you're listening. Please just sign a lifetime contract so we don't have to worry about life after Pep.
He's there being pushed out in a wheelchair, like over there.
Yeah, and then your children can just take over. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just make sure your eldest is being taught.
Yeah, in the way of Pep Guardiola.